A lot of guitarists tend to separate chords and rhythm playing from single note lines and soloing. I think it's a common misconception that you have to practice your chord voicings and rhythm guitar playing and then separate from that, learn your scale patterns and single note lines. But today I want to look into how these two things are inherently connected and give you a better way to visualize things on the fretboard and practice fundamentals like chord voicings, arpeggios, and scale patterns. So it's really helpful when you're learning guitar to have a visual roadmap of the fretboard. Now obviously we're playing music, so it's super important that you can hear the things that you want to play. But when you're learning new stuff and familiarizing yourself with new concepts, it's really helpful to be able to see things laid out across the fretboard. For me, chord shapes have always been the easiest thing to see on the fretboard, and being able to visualize a chord progression laid out across the fretboard is a great roadmap. This will help your rhythm guitar playing, but also serve as a great foundation for learning arpeggios and scale patterns. So to demonstrate this, we're going to use a very common chord progression. This is a 2-5-1 progression in the key of C major. And our chords are D minor 7, G7, and C major 7. And we can play all of these chords in this one position, right, without having to move our hand up and down the fretboard. And these chords can act as a basic guide for everything that's going on in this position, right? We can play the notes of these chords in order and get our arpeggio shapes. For this D minor voicing, we can play D, F, A, and C. That's the root, minor third, perfect fifth, and flat seventh of that chord. For G7, we can play G, B, D, and F. That's the root, major third, perfect fifth, and flat seventh of a G7. Then for C major 7, we've got C, E, G, and B. That's the root, major third, perfect fifth, and major seventh of a C major 7. And we can play these arpeggio shapes stretched out across all 6 strings in this position. And again, all these arpeggio shapes connect directly with these underlying chord voicings. And of course, all this stuff can be connected together with the C major scale because all of these chords are diatonic to the key of C major, meaning they all fit under the umbrella of the key of C. So again, in this position, we can play our C major scale. So once again, all of these things, the chord voicings, the arpeggios, and the scale are all connected together in this one spot. And this is great if we want to add some different extensions and fills to our rhythm playing. Or if we want to navigate through these chords with single note lines and target the chord tones. So now that we've worked through this one position, we can start moving it up the fretboard through all 5 positions, and we can see how these chord voicings can be a great guide for the underlying arpeggios and the scale patterns in each spot on the fretboard. So we started here with this D minor 7, this G7, and this C major 7. Now we can move this up to the next position and we get this D minor 7, this G dominant 7, and this C major 7. And our arpeggios in this spot start here, going from the lowest string to the highest string. Here's D minor 7. And once again, our C major scale in this position. So once again, we can use this to tie together our chords and to create little single note lines and fills that weave in between the chords. Or we can play single note lines that target the chord tones and navigate through these chords, outlining them as we go. All right, so let's move up to our third position. From this D minor 7 here, we can move up another position to this D minor 7, then this G7 voicing, and then finally this C major 7 voicing. And again, these chord shapes can be a visual guideline to what's going on in this position, that you can quickly kind of see where the chords are, and then as you practice your arpeggio shapes and scale patterns, it gives you a visual guide as to what's going on in that position. So our arpeggios in this position. And again, our C major scale in this spot on the fretboard. So now, just like before, we can tie these things together to create fills for our chords, or to outline these chords in our single note lines. All right, let's keep going up through the positions. Now we move up to this D minor 7 voicing, this G7 voicing, and finally this C major 7 voicing. And our arpeggios in this spot once again are and once again, our C major scale in this spot. Now we can go ahead and tie these chords together with lines out of the scale, and we can use the arpeggio shapes to target the chord tones in our single note lines. All right, so there's one more position to look at. From this D minor here, we can move up to this final position. This would be sort of like playing an open D minor shape down here in the open position. But we're going to play it up here around the 12th fret. And you could play this D minor triad here, or you could spread it out and play that minor third down in the bass, which is kind of a nice voicing. Then we've got our G7, which would be kind of like an open G shape but played up here, and we can put the flat 7 in the chord. And then we would have what would be like an open C shape played up here, and we can put the major 7 on top. And so these arpeggios in this spot are like this. And again, our C major scale in this position. So once again, we can use this stuff to tie together our chords. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to actually play down here in this open position, because this is kind of where normally we would probably play a rhythm guitar part rather than up here at the 12th fret. So we can take these chord voicings and tie them together with the scale. And again, we can navigate through these changes using the chord tones and tying them together with scale notes to outline these changes in a solo. For this, I'll move back up to this position. All right, guys, so this is exactly the kind of thing I practice to figure out how to navigate through chord changes. Practicing this kind of stuff and applying it to songs and chord progressions that you're working on will really help you learn the fretboard, map things out, whether it's playing chords and rhythm stuff or whether it's trying to navigate through changes with single note lines. Of course, once you get these positions together, you can start blending them together. So I can play, D minor from this position, move up to a G7 from the next position, and follow up to a C major 7. So once I get comfortable with these different spots, right, I can start moving it around the fretboard and play with total freedom. That's the whole idea of working through these different positions and getting comfortable with them all. So if you're interested in learning more stuff like this and getting deeper into this, this is exactly the kind of stuff I covered in my last course I did over with Brett Papa on his website. It's called The Art of Melodic Soloing, and we go through a whole bunch of different progressions doing exactly this kind of exercise, and I do a little bit more in-depth, detailed demonstrations of how to solo in each position over a variety of different chord progressions. And if you'd like the tabs to all these arpeggios and scale patterns and all the stuff that I played in this lesson, head over to my Patreon site. All the links are down in the description. So until next time, happy practicing and take care.